Another difference that I forgot to mention between homeless families and homeless youth or homeless individuals is that, like this one girl told me, she grew up homeless her entire life. And honestly, she still wasn't that old. She was only like 20 or 21 when I met her, something like that. But she told me that the difference between her and me is that she had a dad and a brother, but she also had a mom as well. She had the protection, to a certain extent at least, that a lot of street kids don't have, and a lot of homeless individuals don't have as well, unless they like do the whole buddy dating thing, which I mean most people do in society anyways, because dating is pretty much like a thing about hookup culture and emotional support in the West, and also having a place to stay. But either way, this is why I say that there really should be more groups, not on Reddit, not some bullcrap like that. Groups where people can really talk about the truth without the chomo bullcrap and without the white supremacist European philosophies, without the white supremacist philosophy of atheism, without the white supremacists on the left or the right. Especially the left, because Reddit is a leftist app for the covert, subconscious, racist, white savior liberals. Gaps in social services are leaving homeless youth with no good choices. In the U.S., funding to shelter teens and young adults experiencing homelessness is far outstripped by the need. Or really what people should be talking about is the legalities around it that actually not only stop youth shelters from being made in the U.S., but shut down the little youth shelters that did used to exist, which were still mostly on the West Coast back in the 80s, and I can't remember what else. For months, he woke to the sound of cars. Sometimes the incessant roaring kept him up at night. But sleeping under an overpass was better than sleeping under nothing. So 19-year-old Israel Cook learned to manage. No human should be living under conditions like that, he said, of the stretch of U.S. Route 29 in Gainesville, Virginia, that he lived beneath this summer. But where else did he have to go? Most days he readied for work in the dark, freshening up with baby wipes unless rain offered a chance for a makeshift shower. I've been homeless for 6 years, Cook said. This summer, this is life now. As the nation continues to deal with the growing homelessness crisis, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, announced a record $3.1 billion this year to support the Continuum of Care program, the shelter system that spans the country. And I'm wondering if this is connected to HMIS, because I know HMIS is like the database or whatever they use in every state. But that program predominantly serves adults and families for unaccompanied teens and young adults experiencing homelessness. There's little age-appropriate support. That's meant Cook and too many youth like him have had to face homelessness alone. Cook said he was just 13, still in middle school, when his mother sent him to live with his father, a Navy veteran in rural Virginia. Homelessness dogged them for years, Cook said. Despite entering 9th grade a year late, he managed to finish high school a semester early with a B average, and he did it while sleeping in tents, warehouses, shelters made from boxes and pallets he strung together, or, if he was lucky, the houses of sympathetic strangers. He now works 48 to 52 hours each week, yet stable housing remains elusive. Cook makes about $2,400 a month, the fair rent price for a one-bedroom apartment in his zip code. As calculated by HUD, is more than $2,000 per month. When he finds rent he can afford, he once got his hopes up for an apartment 5 miles out of town that costs $1,200 a month. He's never found a landlord willing to rent to him. a lot of places don't want to lease to me because I'm too young and I don't have anybody to sign with me. In fact, I remember my mom used to talk about how a lot of places didn't want to rent to anybody under 25, or really even older than that. And I remember all my older siblings on my mom's side were kicked out at 14. So they fell into the usual cycles of having to go stay with chomos and staying with random people who are nice enough to actually let them stay with them. Although, as I always say, typically the people who are really willing to help people aren't safe and they're not really in the predicament to be helping somebody. But anywho, that and then the eventual cycle of just being dragged back into the abusive family system and becoming an enabler, flying monkey. Okay, wait a minute, where am I? Oh yeah, but I forgot to say the last part with that. My brother, who was, or at least by the time he was 17 anyways, he wanted to rent his own apartment. And he was trying to get his SSDI. I don't know who was getting it, I can't really remember. I think maybe our grandma at the time, or my mom's mom. But that's kind of another story, but overall he wasn't able to get anybody to rent to him. And sometimes people are able to figure it out and get someone to rent to them at least at 17, but sometimes even younger, but that's really if you get lucky. Or maybe if you find some type of landlord on some website or something somewhere that's not dangerous, but that doesn't really care as long as you're able to pay and that doesn't ask for ID. I actually had met a 19-year-old who was able to find something like that, but I can't remember on what site. But anywho, I think it started with a K or something. And though he can't say for sure, he suspects some landlords won't rent to him because he can't provide a current address. Honestly, he was able to manage to do the first step of finding a job and actually getting somebody to hire him. And I'm not saying that really is the end all be all, because obviously, as you can see, that doesn't mean much, but that's also a really hard step for some people. Not even because of drugs or anything when the person is using drugs. Honestly, I've seen many people throughout my entire life who are obviously on crack, meth, and heroin and a whole bunch of other stuff that still have a job because they've been able to get hired. It's really about getting somebody to actually hire you, it seems, not about anything else. And ageism could be a big issue. Also, not having an address. And the thing is, jobs aren't really checking addresses. They're really not supposed to, and they really shouldn't care. The only time they really care about an address is when they obviously know that you're homeless, or they can tell or they find out. Then they start caring about an address. Other than that, jobs don't even really care, and they really shouldn't. Also, the fact that he somehow managed to graduate high school, because it's a lot of people aren't able to. And then it's if you are a younger, or more so in the teen years, and you're trying to get a job, and places ask about your diploma or whatever, and you say that you're not in school or you don't have one, but you're at an age where they're expecting you to be in school, that also can cause a lot of issues. Because it's if you're younger with a GED, when it comes to discriminatory stereotypical people, they're were you never in school? Have you never been to school? Because you still should be in school. And it's a lot of stuff with that. Also, the fact that it's really, really hard to even get a GED underage if you're not able to get a diploma. I got lucky with that due to being in GA for a little bit and having to beg and all types of stuff to even get my mom to enroll me in the program, because she really didn't want me to get a diploma. It's he did graduate high school though, but a lot of people aren't able to, not even because of being homeless, but even in their previous abuse situation, before they got dumped out or had to escape, they're typically not able to be in school, but that depends on your own specific abuse situation. Okay, wait a minute, where am I? Oh, calling 211, the national hotline that connects people with essential services. Only let Cook on a multi-hour long wild goose chase. The hotline agent ultimately referred Cook to a few adult homeless shelters more than 15 miles away, an impossible distance considering his primary mode of transportation at that time was by foot. And youth like Cook don't belong in adult shelters. And that's the thing. In fact, if I remember, I'll put in like a screenshot of this one video where this 18-year-old homeless kid was talking about with some bullcrap interview channel how he got essayed by some random dude, and the dude was like, I've never heard of that. You never heard of somebody getting assaulted? And it's like, if he was a girl, would you say, dang, there's a spider on my arm, hold up. If he was a girl, would you say that didn't make sense? But it's like, even then people play games. It's like, people feel like if you're getting assaulted and you're a boy, then you're either lucky if it's a woman who's not related to you, or you're quote unquote gay if it's like some dude. But if either way, if you're a boy or a girl, people feel like you're just secretly a prostitute and that's why you're getting assaulted. I don't know why people feel like that. It's like, people feel like, I guess like the world isn't as messed up as it is, or if they're like, I don't know, a sexual predator themselves, they feel like you're just like trying to make people look bad when really you wanted it. It's just, people are weird. I don't even know what to say about it. But anywho, where was I? Said Darla Bardeen, Executive Director for the National Network for Youth, a non-profit organization working to end youth homelessness. Not only do adult shelters often fail to meet the specific needs of young adults, she said, but they can also be dangerous for young adults sleeping and living alongside people decades their senior. Didn't they know he was 19? That's crazy. Adult shelters are not youth appropriate, Bardeen said. But the thing is, there really aren't youth shelters in the U.S. Like, everywhere has homeless children and babies and stuff, but it's like, sure, in places like the Philippines, if you're a certain age and you're like wandering by yourself at night, you can get locked up for that. Although it's more about anti-poverty and anti-homelessness than really just like adultism. But at least in all these other countries, they actually have places or shelters for the kids. I'm not saying that they're good or that they're safe. I'm definitely not saying that. But it's like, the U.S. makes being a homeless youth, or a homeless person under 18 especially, although youth is up to like 20 something, but they make it illegal, but they don't want to put up youth shelters because due to adultism, people just feel like, well, especially if you're under 30, or even if you're under like 30 something, then you have a place to go and you just did something to get kicked out because you're bad and grown, or you just left and you need to go back. And you have to deal with people who, the horrible people from healthy family systems, which is very few, and then the usual people of cognitive dissonance that hold their abusers that mess them up in the highest esteem, and so they feel like you should do that too. And the craziest thing about it is that everybody doesn't even have that option to play dumb and play cognitive dissonance. Some people were kidnapped by CPS and don't even know who their family is. So it's like, everybody doesn't even have the option to just quote unquote go back where they're supposed to be at. Okay, where am I? I don't even know where I was at. According to Bardeen, the best place for a young adult in a situation like Cook's is a youth-specific shelter funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. Young people need youth-specific programming that understands the brain and is developing, that understands the brain's developing until you're 25. But then some people say the brain never stops developing, although I do know that even the your brain doesn't stop developing until 25 or 26 argument is also pushed by adultism and people who are abusive. But it really seems like all these brain development arguments are really all pushed by chomos and sexual predators and stuff. It's never really in the favor of the younger person. Nothing ever is. But as mature and smart as Cook is, he's still 19. He's still making bad choices as all 19-year-olds do because his prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. I do wonder what the bad choices are. I don't even really think that this should even be said to try to make an argument for why youth services should exist. I feel like if anything, this just, I don't know. I don't even know how to put it, but I don't like it. I feel like it's the usual ageist stereotype. He needs support that is developmentally appropriate using a positive youth development approach and trauma-informed care. But the reality is, though, shelters are never going to be safe no matter what age they're for. I mean, really, no institution is safe, but I could definitely say that, like, I personally rather be in a youth shelter than be in a shelter full of, like, people who are 40 plus with the usual brainwashing, the I'm grown complex, and they're sexual predators and a whole bunch of other things. Not that I haven't, like, seen instances with youth shelters where, like, there wasn't sexual predators who were older, even maybe younger, due to, like, different trauma and stuff. They're just, like, getting possessed due to substances they use. Like, I remember in NY, to summarize this story, there was this one boy, I mean, he was still too old for me, but he wasn't that old, I'll say that, but that's not even the thing, though. The thing is that he was, his doctor was giving him promethazine on purpose, of course, because he gets paid to, knowing that he was, like, addicted to it, and so he was, like, trying to give it to me, and I was like, I've heard of that before, but I don't really remember what that is, but I definitely don't want that. And that was at Subway, or outside of Subway, actually, because the Subway owner didn't, he wouldn't let me in, because I was homeless, and, yeah, anywho. So, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah, he had a girlfriend, though. He was literally at the Subway eating with his girlfriend, and he was, like, trying to, like, manipulate me into some bull crap every time she turned around. And then, like, her and some other girls, they wanted to, like, try to talk me into staying at the shelter, but I didn't want to. It was honestly more risky than sleeping on the streets of New York. But it's funny, though, because it's like, I could tell by some of the stuff that the staff were whispering to each other, and just by, like, some of the mannerisms, that it did seem like the girls just wanted to, like, try to talk me into staying at the youth shelter so they could, like, do something sexual with me. But it's like, nobody's really safe. People think it's not even really just, like, a certain gender or age group. Like, I've had people who are definitely, I don't know how old, but definitely years younger than me, try to pull stuff like that. So it's kind of like whatever, but I still rather stay at a youth shelter, though, for a lot of reasons. One, because I'd rather be around people my age or close to it in general. Okay, youth development, no, I think I already read that. Fund youth shelters or also provide transportation. Where are these shelters even at? Because I would love to see that. And have staff to help young people develop life skills such as budgeting, forming goals, and navigating social services, she said. Like, even when I was in the West Coast and, like, I found out about youth shelters, specifically in Portland, not in Cali, but in Oregon. I didn't see anybody giving rides or anything, so it was like, nationally there are 31,478 federally funded beds dedicated to youth, including those supported by HUD. That number doesn't come close to meeting the need. Each year, an estimated 2.3 million unaccompanied teenagers and young adults experience explicit homelessness, usually meaning that they are sleeping on the street, in shelters, or in cars. And another thing is that to really be able to stay at a shelter, you're going to have to lie about your age. So it's like, but I feel like it's only worth it if, like, the weather is really bad, but other than that, it's really not worth it. It also could be risky, and that's why I say, really, with the youth shelters as well, it needs to be set up to where, like, you can stay there regardless of what your situation is. Because, like, let's say you're in a Cash for Kids system Munchausen situation, and you have missing persons reports out about you that have all types of mental labels listed that would have you labeled as, one, a liability, but two, as somebody that needs to be sent back, quote unquote, home because, according to what your abusers say, you're dangerous or whatever, you're retarded or whatever. There should be youth shelters that'll take you in regardless of all that smear campaigning and not care about the mental label bullcrap in general, or trying to drug you if they do let you in by saying, well, we'll let you stay here, but we're still going to want to drug you because, just in case, because you're a liability. It's like, it shouldn't even be like that. Also, they shouldn't, like, try to report you and call the cops and try to get you sent back somewhere. And it should be open for all ages, because, I mean, you don't just become homeless when you're, like, I don't know, 16 or something, or, well, 13 either. You're typically going to become homeless before then even, or at least a lot of people do. So it should be for really all ages. They should probably be separated though, based on age, but you shouldn't have to be a certain age to go to a shelter. In fact, like, as I said before, I've met people who have grown up homeless by themselves since 7, and like, all the different bullcrap that happens, especially due to law enforcement and the police and getting charged and locked up over and over again for being homeless underage, or being homeless in general. Like, if shelters were actually like existing and they were open for all ages, people in situations like that, a lot of things wouldn't happen that happened, to make a long story short. But I'll definitely say though that unfortunately no institution is safe, so like, these institutions are still going to be filled with abusers, chomos, psychiatrists, and it's like, you really, as people say, there is no safe place for people with no family or abusive family. And that's kind of the end-all be-all. That's more than 70 unaccompanied homeless youth for every shelter bed intended for them. We just can't serve everyone, said Judith Dittman, CEO of Second Story, a nonprofit that runs a youth shelter in Virginia. Israel Cook, 19, slept below a highway underpass in Virginia for lack of better options. Shelters for unaccompanied homeless youth are in short supply nationwide. Photo courtesy of Israel Cook. So where might Cook go? There are no good choices, Dittman said. And that's another thing too that I was going to talk about in the video I was supposed to make a long time ago, about the white addict projection, or what I was really going to more so call the what was I going to call it? Originally the West Coast projection, but it's not even a West Coast thing. It's like, really, I could just say the white addict projection. But another thing I noticed with that is that not even just like interview people, but these different organizations that run around making documentaries or getting like homeless people to talk about their experiences, and like they record themselves talking about how they're going to quote unquote help some homeless person, but it's like they run straight for the white people on hardcore drugs, but they ignore the people. I'm not trying to like blame anybody for using that as a coping mechanism. I do want to say that, but like, they run straight for those people and record them, and they know what they're doing. And these are typically people who went to rehab themselves, and so now they have this mindset that because they were on drugs, everybody is or was on drugs, and that's why everything bad happened to them, even though there's a reason that they got on drugs. Like, I literally had a lady who was doing this recording bullcrap with some street outreach organization come up to me, and she was like, I went to rehab and I was on drugs, and she was like, so are you on drugs? And I'm like, no, I'm not on drugs. And of course she was white, so the white addict projection. And she was like, so then why are you homeless, and is it because of rent? And it's like, it's not even, I mean, that's the issue too, but it's not even because of that, it's because of other stuff. Like, the same reason she got on drugs was because of other stuff, but she wants to ignore all the family system bullcrap that obviously happened that led to that. And then people will say people want to blame other people for their issues. It's not even about blaming somebody. Obviously, even though they went to rehab and got off substances, or got off the substances that are considered bad, so they probably still vape and smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol. But even though they did that, they still obviously have no accountability. In fact, it seems like people who go to rehab that are part of what I like to call the white addict projection have less accountability than even the people who are still using. It really is both all equal, if that even came out right. But it's like, everything has to be about drugs for them. What point was I getting at? Oh yeah, but the point I was getting at though is that they record those people, but they ignore the people who aren't on substances. They ignore like all the youth resource centers around in the youth shelters. They don't run around recording the homeless 14-year-olds or 12-year-olds or the homeless, the homeless youth in general. They don't record the people who aren't doing any of that stuff. The people who still, like, not that it's a bad thing or that it's the person's fault that they necessarily lost hope, but like, they don't record the people that still believe they're going to get out the situation, and the people who still have hope, and the people who, what was I about to say? I don't know, like, for example, the foster kid who's dumped out but is 18, or maybe isn't even 18 yet. They're like, 15 or something, and they're trying to get emancipated, and they're being shown the youth resources for foster kids, and they're like hoping they're going to figure something out. Or maybe they're young and they already lost hope, but they're still not on substances yet. Or maybe they are on substances already. So like the people who have been on drugs since they were 8 or 14 or whatever, like hardcore drugs, especially with like these types of areas with these serious issues. They don't record those people. They go straight to somebody who is severely split and fractured due to trauma and severely broken. Not that that's their fault, but they like record those people and they know what they're doing, because then those are the videos where people make comments, which of course people are going to say this stuff regardless because they don't give a crap and they're evil and prideful. But still, people make comments saying, what's the thing people say in Cali all the time? Homeless, mentally ill, drug addicts, give me back my taxpayer dollars. Things like that. Not that people would care regardless of who they really recorded, but it's like they're controlling the narrative and they're trying to push a certain narrative. The reason there are so few beds for youth is the limited funding for them. That's not even really the key narrative. The key narrative is the laws that have been passed that shut down youth shelters on purpose and the adultism. That's the key narrative. I mean, the key wait, I don't even know. In the 2022 fiscal year, HUD and HHS gave out a combined $109 million in grants to support shelters serving youth. And there's none in the South. Well, I mean, there's a few Covenant houses, but in comparison, grants to support adult and family shelters, all from HUD, totaled nearly $3 billion that year. And another thing is that I feel like homeless youth should be able to stay at family shelters. And I mean, some places are nice enough to where they will let you stay at a family shelter, so that way you're not like in the most risky shelter you could be in. But it's like some places really don't care about that. And I feel like it should be like that because it could be a lot safer. And I'm not just saying only if the person's like a homeless youth who's a female. I mean for males too. But of course, I mean, they're not going to want to do that. But it's still stupid though, because it's like, I mean, the family shelters have dads living there. They have single dads. So it's like, but people are really funny. But this had more fun, and there would be a program in Gainesville. Bardeen said, the way Congress earmarks support for homeless people, she said, represents a massive disparity. Second Story stopped accepting new youth into its transitional living program, which offers long-term stable housing for youth after it lost its HHS grant in 2022. And that's another thing too. With the what's about to go down on the West Coast with the whole earthquake tsunami thing, it's like that's gonna screw stuff up even more. It really is. And it's like most homeless youth don't even know about the little services that do exist, and the little ones that do exist are mostly on the West Coast. And it's like I mean, I've known people that if they could have just got the little bit of services that exist on the West Coast and the South or the East Coast or wherever they're at, that's most likely going to be in the South or the East Coast, they could have been a lot further and things could have been a lot better for them. Kind of like the story I talked about with on the storm shelter at the Catholic Church in North Carolina, and that whole bullcrap scenario. Well, not bullcrap scenario, it was mostly funny, but the bullcrap was that the toxic, really Jezebelic 40-year-old women, really specifically 2 of them, were really angry and bitter and jealous of younger people. And I talked about this in my video that was, my videos, that was like a 5-part series titled Funny Situation Since Becoming Homeless or something like that. And if I remember, I'll put it in the description, but pretty much these 2 ladies wanted to fight these 2 girls who were like, 18, 19, something like that. They were jealous of one because she had a job in a car, and they were jealous of the other one because she was just younger and they were calling her a hoe and stuff. But she wasn't even a quote-unquote hoe, whatever that really means. She was getting essayed by these dudes at the men's shelter because she started staying at the men's shelter because these 2 women at the women's shelter kept threatening to beat her up for no reason. And so she got essayed and she got pregnant. And things went really, really left because one of the dudes ended up sticking some gummies down her throat when trying to assault her. And then stuff happened, and then the baby ended up dying, and then she was depressed because of that, obviously, because she wanted the baby, and it's just like, it was really, really horrible. And then after that, the staff said that nobody could sleep at the men's shelter anymore, at least the women couldn't. And to be truthfully honest, she shouldn't have had to do that anyways. As much as the staff called the police on somebody every single night, like, they literally called the police on one lady because they were just scared because she was having, like, I don't know what they call it, like mania or something like that, and she couldn't go to sleep, and her eyes were red, and she just wasn't going to sleep. She was just sitting there, but like, she wasn't doing anything to anybody, but of course that makes people nervous, and so they called the police on her because of that. They called the police on another lady because I don't remember what happened, but she started crying because of something, and that was something to call the cops over. It's like they should have called the cops on those two ladies, but actually eventually they did call the police on one of them because she told one of the staff, F you. And she was like, really, Miss Marquita, you're calling the police on me because I said F you? But yeah, somebody went to jail every night. But overall, those dudes should have went to jail though. I should throw that in there. But yeah, that was really, really bad. But anywho, it relies on private donations and its own reserves to continue operating. And another thing about this, it also goes into the adultism and the anti-runaway rhetoric, as I call it, which I talk about a lot in the, what was it called? My response to Coroners' message to teens and parents. Like, Coroners' message was absolute bullcrap, and most people are too ignorant and dumbed down to even realize how horrible and stupid that actually was. And then also my video that I talk about a couple of different things, but I think the title is Candace Owens, We're Scared of Kids These Days, and I can't remember the rest of the title. But yeah, I talk about anti-runaway rhetoric and how really it does nothing but enable human trafficking as well as other bullcrap. We don't want to wait a minute. We don't want to take from one pot of money to another. I was about to say a pot of honey. Dittman said of congressional decisions about funding. An 80-year-old homeless person still needs a bed. See, that's another thing too. That's not wrong, as if people care about the elderly homeless people anyways, but it's like, I don't like the rhetoric where people are like, okay, this person's mentally ill and it's their fault they're mentally ill because all they have to do is go get quote-unquote treatment and sit in a chair for 5 hours and talk to somebody, and then they'll be okay, and then they'll be better. And that's why they're mentally ill, because they refuse to get help, so they don't deserve help. But this person who, I don't know, is 40 does deserve help, and then this person who's on drugs doesn't deserve help. Although I will say, I did notice in Cali that while still nobody would like help with housing or anything, it did seem like if you weren't actually like a part of the white addict projection and you weren't like on drugs, then places actually liked you less because they couldn't take advantage of you as much. So if you weren't 40 plus and on drugs, they didn't want you around pretty much. And I'm talking about organizations when I say they. But anywho, I like to think serving young people cuts off the pipeline of chronic homelessness. And this is what I've been saying for years. People really don't understand this. If it wasn't for the homeless youth, there would be no homeless people at all. If it wasn't that like a 7-year-old is told, okay, wait till you're 18, and then when you're 18, you're told, okay, you're still too young, wait till you're 26, then you're told, okay, well, you're still too young, wait till you're 30. If it wasn't for that, the homeless issues that have existed throughout all these many years wouldn't even exist at all. Stuff that's about to go down as far as America/Babylon's coming judgment. A lot of people are going to end up homeless, but I'm not even talking about that. Mainstream homelessness is caused by a breakdown in the family system. It's like people focus on homeless families, but it's like homeless families still have families. They still have the hope when it comes to that. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve services, but it's like people focus more on homeless families and like a homeless 7-year-old with no parents. Because of course they should just stop being bad and quote unquote go home, or they should, I don't know, people say, well, CPS or the police should do something. Police are going to say it's not their job. CPS, they're only going to do something if the parent is homeless too. Because kidnapping kids from homeless parents who have done nothing wrong, they're easy targets. But other than that, CPS, that is being homeless. Being in CPS custody, you're going to be homeless. You're going to be either full-blown homeless or you're going to be getting trafficked through different institutions. And most likely they'll send you back home, which would still be better than being in CPS custody. But it's very unlikely for them to do something but blame the victim. And it's not safe anyways. It's actually more unsafe than being outside. Research estimates 85% of people who experience long-term homelessness, defined in the study as longer than 12 months, come from the youth to adult pipeline. A single chronically homeless person costs taxpayers on average more than $35,000 a year, according to data from the National Alliance to End Homelessness. That public schools assist homeless students to help break what could become an inaccessible cycle of hardship, but many of the students who need that aid fall through the cracks. The funny thing about that, though, is that it gives me flashbacks of the whole MTZ High situation. I don't remember much about it, but back on the abuse evidence channels, I talked about it pretty often and did have clips at least. And I remember this one point in time where the counselor kept telling me that I wasn't allowed to talk to the school social worker about my situation because it wasn't that bad, because his daughter died and his wife died in a car wreck or something like that, and there were homeless kids. And if there's homeless kids in the school, you're actually supposed to point them to services to help them. Or maybe he was talking about the foster kids, which is honestly what I assume, that he was talking about the foster kids that were living in group homes, because that is homelessness, but I'm not really sure. Another study commissioned by Youth Link, a nonprofit that helps provide homeless youth with basic needs in Minneapolis, Minnesota, found that only 6% of homeless youth it assists would need to gain financial independence by age 20 for taxpayers to break even. Wait. I don't know what that's supposed to... I'm confused. Okay, wait a minute. I think I get it now. I was really confused. I think I'm reading it too fast, though, which I do pretty often when I read stuff in videos. There's so much research, Bardian said. It's like invest in youth now and save money later. It's like the numbers are there, the data is there. And like I mentioned from some video I watched about homeless youth that did some study, can't remember what video it was, but one of the program founders or whatever said that people who have already been homeless by 24 are more likely to be homeless at 48. For Cook, what 6 years of homelessness showed is how frustratingly hard it is to escape without government help. It feels like I'm doing everything right, he said, yet the difficulties still feel endless. And this is the thing. There is no system put in place to help anybody. I won't say if this is the only way, but I will say that the only real help from outside that I could say you could get would be from an individual person. Other than that, it's kind of whatever. If you've been homeless for no, I think I already read that. Did I? I don't think so. For more than 6 months to a year, you can't get out of it. That's your life unless a miracle comes. And that makes me think about something else I noticed. When I was in Cali especially, even here, but I would say that, well, no, I feel like that could be a video of its own. I don't really want to go into that rant. So I'll say in Cali, I met a lot of people who had their own housing and stuff and only recently became homeless. But the moment you become homeless, especially in areas like that, you're automatically a mentally ill drug addict and a bum. And it's being used by the systems and the different organizations actually makes things worse for these people. And it's somebody that's only been homeless for a month or 6 months or whatever, that gets dragged out. It kind of reminds me of how people say they became a street kid at 13, 14, and then eventually they made it to 18 and they were able to lay low. And then when they looked up, they were 23, and then when they looked up, they were 35. And then they were 40, and that's pretty much how it can go. Or at least a summary without talking about all the side details and all the side things that happen. In October, he felt he'd finally gotten one. That furnace letting him live in what used to be an antique store that had fallen into disrepair. It took Cook 3 weeks to get the plumbing and electricity working, but it's a place to stay. For the short term, I suppose, Cook said. And that's the thing, though. Another thing about this is that people weren't even designed to, like, have no family and have no support. Like, in cultural places that aren't, like, too trifling, you're not really just supposed to get thrown out. At least not culturally. People still do it, but it's not supposed to happen, obviously. And then it's like, you pretty much stay with your family stays together until you're married, or even once you're married, everybody moves in. Just like I talked about in I don't know what video. I was reading this book, I can't remember the author name, but I'll put it in the description if I remember. And it was called The Outliers, or The Outlier Effect or something. And it's about like how people get to where they're at, although I'll say it's still bullcrap, because some of the people mentioned are born into bloodlines where they're destined to become billionaires and trillionaires. But I will say, though, that this one part where it talked about how this one community didn't have depression and, like, stroke and heart attack rates like other places, they, I don't know what was I saying? I think I was saying that, it talked about how the reason that they were healthy is because families stayed together up to like the third generation or something like that. Like the great-grandparents lived in the house, the grandparents, the parents, the kids, the grandkids, stuff like that. But also another side to it is that due to the fact that families are toxic, people are either being dumped out or they're being kidnapped by trafficking organizations, or they're born into a trafficking organization, or they're having to escape. And so then there's that too.